you so much for always being part of the biggest evening show in Rua City. Remember, this is where we give you exclusive analysis in the world of sports. Of course, we shall be having what we call a club-to-club talk. We shall start it off from here, then we shall be going up to international level, of course, taking it up to the within home. Of course, the biggest one is the return of the Fufa drum. Of course, it goes down in Yumbe district, whereby most of these players who will be playing their trade for the Western Province always come from, of course, backwards youngsters making headlines actually in the regional league. Of course, they are very busy in the transfer market, of course, on the Praga Football Club as well, making amends, and they're trying to actually to rebuild. And Uganda Cranes yesterday with that historic actually comeback against South Africa. Which team Uganda will be playing in the quarterfinals? I'll be letting you know, of course, that group where teams like South Sudan, teams like DR Congo, and teams like Senegal. Exclusive actually analysis about that. Then internationally, there's something that the former Manchester United player in the name of Gary Neville, who won 6 Premier League titles with Manchester United, has already changed his top 4. And former Liverpool, former Liverpool manager, former Liverpool coach, player in the name of Jamie Carragher, has also pointed a player whom he thinks Arsenal needs to use during big games. All this we shall be analyzing for you here actually at Sunrise TV. Of course, my name is Senior Zeri, the host of the show. This show is proudly sponsored by Sabrima Global Ventures Limited. Remember, they're the biggest and the sole sponsors of this show. Of course, what you have to do is look for the offices of Sabrima Global Ventures Limited. Remember, they deal in various activities. They do deal in bids. They deal in construction or supply of goods and other things. Of course, Monday transaction, Sabrima Global Ventures Limited, they are always there to see that all the information that I will give you are always authentic. Of course, we are here to give you authentic information in the world of sports. Remember, in the transfers, Ebretse Eze and Mark Guehi are making headlines in Europe. Of course, Ebretse Eze is being spotted by Crystal Palace. By a team the names of Tottenham Hotspur in there, and then Mark Guehi is being spotted by team Liverpool Football Club, which I'll be looking into that, into nitty-gritty. Of course, Jamie Vardy, after a number of seasons with team Leicester City, and then he is set to join his former coach in the names of Brendan Rodgers down in Celtic, which I'll be looking into that, into nitty-gritty. I'm not alone in the studio. I'm together with my best friend and my colleague as well, whom anytime will be sitting in the show here whenever I'm not around, in the names of Emma Odoi. Remember, he is a very big fan of Barcelona Football Club. As you can see, he is down in Barcelona Zaze. We shall be looking into that, of course. Yamil Yamal has said something. We shall be looking into that, into nitty-gritty. Of course, my name is Senior, like I said. First of all, Emma Odoi, you're most welcome to the citizens of Sunrise TV.
Thank you, presenter. Emma Odoi, as you can see me, on Sunrise TV.
Okay, that's that's the voice and the picture of Emma Odoi, as you can see on the screens. Of course, this is been his maiden season of being appearing on a TV or in a media house. You may kind of pardon him. Of course, there are a lot of things that he will need to actually adapt, and he is still someone who is still learning one or two things. Probably you needed to give him some free actual space in there. Of course, although let's speak it from here, and we talk about the West Nile drum team. Of course, the drum team is set to kick off on the 30th of this very month, and is other provinces that will be kicking off this tournament. But the biggest one, which I'll be talking about, West Nile, etc. Of course, the West Nile, actually, the drum team, ever since its actual inspection, no team has gone into defend it. That's the drum team in there. Of course, West Nile province at the Bomber Grounds down in Yumbe. How big is this game against the Bogisu that Western will be playing against? Of course, we have seen how a tremendous Western has been thriving into what we call the drum games here in Uganda.
Really, it's really a big game for Western and for people of Yumbe.
Yeah.
I think the people of Yumbe will turn in large numbers because we have some special players in the Western squad.
Yeah.
You see like Sadat, Anna Kuhapi,
yes,
Muhammad Saban, Azumane, as you know, he's called Gaddafi Wahab, Azai, Balionzin Afian, and so many others. I think it's really a big game for West Nile, but as we know, West Nile, we always come top, and it's our season, and we need to take the trophy in hand.
But let's first talk about the influence of big name players in the team of Western Football Club. Of course, we've seen a number of these big name players in the team of Western, like you said, Gaddafi Wahab is one of the biggest one. We did see Bright Vonnet also coming that body in the middle to say that he is ready for this game. Mo Saban, as he used to say, that he is much ready to see that Western Province lift this one again. And then players like Fahad Bayo are also saying that they are very much ready. Not forgetting other players like Antama Juniors of this world, they are much ready. How prepared should Western get to see that they kind of surpass other teams into this tournament? Of course, Western Alsace have got a very history against the Bogiso. Of course, Western is in a group whereby you have got Acholi Province, Bogiso, then Western Alsace. Of course, how important will this home match be for Western Province? Of course, we all know home matches are always very crucial, and if you want to see that you're determined to achieve something, you first have to pick it from home. Of course, you have to win your first game. And then how do you see Western Province doing that against Bogiso down in Yumbe, which has got a very large population, a population who loves football, a population that is kind of determined to see that whenever Western Province goes there, the crowd is always very massive. And it's not up to the Western FA to see that the number of players that they will be summoned are quality players. Of course, this is whereby they really needed to summon a very rich team to see that the team plays the A game into what we call into the tournament of the Fufa drum games. Of course, we have seen other teams not performing to the expectation, and Kole region is not doing to the expectation. We have seen Tore, we have seen Karamazong region, we have seen Kigezi region not doing to the expectation. But how ready to Western be prepared for this game against Bogiso on the 7th of August, of September at Boma Grounds down in Yumbe?
I really think Western has a rich squad, but it's up to the coach to really select the best players out of the many. But I think the really solid block in front of West Nile will really be Acholi, because Bogiso has not been a good time for them here in West Nile and in their home ground also. But West Nile should be careful against Acholi when they are playing Acholi, because Acholi is a hard opponent for West Nile ever. Teams like Acholi and Lango, they are really a hard opponent for West Nile. But I think teams like Rinzori, those are really not hard fixtures for West Nile. I think even though the players are good, or the manager really selects the players that are willing to play for West Nile and the beds of West Nile, West Nile can really do it. And we defeat Acholi here in Boma Grounds.
Of course, West Nile will be playing against Bogiso. That's the first game. Of course, after that, they have to travel away and go and play a team in the names of Bogiso in the return league. Of course, after that, West Nile will have to travel back and play a team in the names of Acholi Province. In the, we don't know where this game will be played, but all in all, is a game that West Nile will be playing in their group. In there, of course, Western Province have got a very history against Acholi. Of course, Acholi as well has got a very rich history against Western Province. Of course, these two provinces have ever met, and the reality is these teams have always have a damage on each other. That's between Acholi and West Nile in there. Of course, Lango being a predominant side, of course, winning it out to the back last season, that creates. You really need to have got a quality score to see that they remain competitive. Of course, you need to have coaches that are capable of assembling a very good team, and a coach who is capable of reading the game excellently. Of course, we have seen Samson Sidokoti being given that mandate actually to be the head coach of Western Province, but nevertheless he really never leave it to the building. Of course, last season in the drum games, of course, we are going to see whether the Western FA is also going to trust Samson Sidokuti again with their coach Lolo to see that they are the ones leading this team of Western Province. Starts that final. Of course, Samson Sidokuti being appointed latestly with the Pakot Youngsters as the head coach after leaving on top of football club in there. Of course, Samson Sidokuti returns to Pakwat Youngsters as the head coach. Of course, he is having Cup C. That's where he belongs, and he is already with the team Pakwat Youngsters. And talking of Pakwat Youngsters, this is a team that is preparing so much in the transfers. Of course, they have signed already 2 players that I know already into the system. Of course, they signed a team, a player in the names of Abdul Adnan from Dramataku Football Club. Of course, he is a box-to-box midfielder in there. Then again, they've added a pace winger in the names of Mabe Godwin. Of course, Mabe Godwin has played for a number of teams here in West Nile. Of course, he has played for Varabois, he has played for Copper Rising Stars, he has played for Yahama actually in there. Of course, he has now pen to paper on a new deal for the young boys. I'm talking about Pakwati Young Stars. How ready is Pakwati Young Stars for for the forthcoming regional league? Of course, this team has got a very rich budget. Of course, 128 million Ugandan shillings is what this team has actually prepared to see that club-to-club activities are run smoothly in there. Of course, what I have to tell you is that they have got a budget of 6 players, and all these 6 players are quality club. We are going to see whether this team of Pakwati youngsters will be in position to sign all these players. Of course, I did talk to the media officer in the names of Mark Stanley. He did tell me that they are really thriving very fast to see that they sign quality players. Of course, their club president in the names of Isaac Opio is as well in there looking for deals for this team. Of course, this team needs to be organized and it's a community-based club. How do you assess Samson Sizokuti with this team of Pakwati youngsters? Of course, we have seen Samson Sizokuti working so well with the young players at Leo Football Club and at the same time with the Mvara Boys, and he has tried his level best to Ndupraka Football Club, but things never went so good for Samson Sizokuti when he was still the head coach of Ndupraka Football Club in there. But he has opted for another challenge down in Pakwati, whereby he has crossed over 4 districts to go and coach a team in the names of Pakwati youngsters. How good do you think Samson Sizokuti will help this team of Pakwati youngsters?
Starting from the story of Mabe, he's really a pacey winger.
Yes.
And he's really a good winger. I think that's a good addition for Pakwati youngsters. Taking on his statistics.
Yes.
For me, I know Mabe best from Varabois when he played for Varabois, when they were still in the regional league.
Yes.
He was a really helpful winger from Varabois, scoring goals, giving assists, and disturbing defenders.
Yes.
I think that's a good addition for Pakwati youngsters, but going to the saga of Caesar Samson Okuti, I think Caesar Samson Okuti is really a very good coach who works with young youth players, and he really likes young people and young players.
Yes.
And he deals with young players, he mentors them and models them and makes them become professional players, playing for big clubs in the Uganda Premier League and Fufa Big League.
Now, talking of players that Samson Sizokuti has kind of modeled, which players have you seen that Samson Sizokuti has really modeled and the player has gone somewhere?
I think the examples of such players are Osuta of Leo Football Club, who is right now playing in regional league for a club called Dramataku Football Club.
Yes.
Tomeka is also one of them, playing for Dramataku Football Club.
Yes.
And so many others that I cannot mention for now. Yeah.
Of course, Samson Sizokuti is known of nurturing young talents. Of course, these young players have kind of adored Samson Sizokuti so much. Of course, he has got that exposure and he has got that good relationship dealing with these young stars. Of course, Samson Sizokuti is a coach who jokes around with these players. He is not all that like a Jose Felix Moreno kind of coach to these young players. Of course, he is very much positive and social to these youngsters, and he always guides them a lot to see that they achieve what he has achieved in the game of football. Because Samson Sizokuti has moved places because of football, and he started his football journey just here within West Nile, and from Varabois, then from there he crosses over to play for Idiofa Hills, and senior secondary school in there, and Samson Sizokuti has moved borders and he has even reached up to the level of playing international. Of course, he has scored a number of good games, good goals for actually this team that he has played for. I can remember very well against Express, he scored acrobatic. That still reminds me of the quality of Samson Sizokuti, and he was also very tangible in the quest of Arua Hills promotion into what we call the Southern Uganda Premier League before this team got actually relegated after a few years back into the what we call the regional league. Of course, Samson Sizokuti has got a very rich history when it comes to coaching. Of course, he is much known of giving players what we call intensive training. That's Samson Sizokuti, a training that once he gives it to you, you appreciate what Samson Sizokuti have done for you. Then he makes those players to be physically fit for this game and mentally strong. That's the quality of Samson Sidokuti. Like my good friend Odoya said, he has kind of nurtured a number of these young stars to see that they live to the best. I can tell you one of them is Ibrahim, who now currently plays for a team in the names of NEC Football Club. He has moved places. He has played for a team in the names of Mbarara City. He has played for Arua Hill junior team, and at the same time he also played for Arua Hill senior team. He played for Ntoparaka before he crossed over to a team in the name of Mbarara City. That's Ibra for you, one of the most solid youngsters, and he is still a player of NEC Football Club. Of course, he will be representing NEC in what we call a CAF Confederation Cup. A very positive growth for Samson Sidokuti as a coach, and I'm actually very proud. Football Club, they are courtesy of Samson Sidokuti, very, very rich history when it comes to player development. And I think the people of Saburidon will benefit a lot from Samson Sidokuti in there. But let's leave it at that, and then we'll talk about Uganda Queens. Of course, yesterday, Uganda Queens made a history, and that was one of the remarkable histories that this team of Uganda Queens has actually made in what we call the CHAN tournaments. You remember, this is a tournament which has been hosted by Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. You remember, this is whereby you will be seeing a number of teams qualifying through. Of course, these teams co-hosting have already qualified through. Kenya has qualified on 10 points on top of the table. Tanzania as well has qualified 10 points on top of the table. And Uganda yesterday also qualified historically. That performance that Uganda had in the first half against South Africa was really somewhat a point to talk about, but they had got a mixed dissenting performance in the second half that actually costed them against South Africa. Of course, we shall be talking about that in anything there, but in reality, Uganda has got Tanzania, not Tanzania, it's just, but DR Congo, South Sudan, and Senegal to face off in the quarterfinal. Of course, those teams that I mentioned will be playing at 8 p.m. Uganda time. Of course, Uganda will be knowing which team finishes second in that Group D. Of course, the team that finishes second, Uganda will definitely play that team. But before I tell you which team that Uganda will be, which team that will be playing in Group D, let's first talk about the performance of Uganda Queens yesterday in that game against South Africa. Of course, we all know Uganda started this tournament. They started the tournament very, very poorly. Against Algeria, they were walloped by 3-0, and that was the opening game. And the first of the game, whereby a hosting country had to lose by that score margin there, and then Algeria had to beat them by 3-0. Then after that, Uganda bounced back strongly. They beat a team in the name of Guinea. After that, they beat also a team in the name of Niger. Then again, they held South Africa yesterday historically 3-3. What an amazing Africa, Odoy.
Really, it was a standout performance for Uganda in that game against South Africa. As you can see, Uganda started by scoring fast in the match, and after that they were astray, and with some defensive errors, South Africa had to equalize, and after a few minutes South Africa scored the second goal.
Yes.
That really tolerated Uganda's performance. It really took the morale of the boys really down.
Yes. From
there, Uganda also made an error again from the defensive department, and South Africa scored the third goal. As you saw, the coach really made some changes, substituting some players and bringing others. But in the game, Alan Okello really stood strong for Uganda, doing every magic. You see him running all over the pitch, doing what? Everything Uganda had. Jude Semgabi was also one of them, doing really giving headache to the defenders of South Africa, doing everything possible so that Uganda really fights for a draw. But the boys who also came in, they had that courage, they had that strength. They really went past South Africa, getting 2 penalties at that short period of time and making the match 3-3 in Nambole. And the last penalty was taken by our captain in the name of Torach. That was a really good sign to show that Uganda is ready to face the next opponent. That may be that not DR Congo, Congo Brazzaville and Sudan. But we wait to see from the outcome of the matches, because Congo South Sudan and DRC are still left with 1 games to go. So wait and see which team Uganda will host. But I hope if Uganda will continue with such an outstanding performance like of yesterday, they will really strive forward. And if we continue with such performance, the last point where Uganda will come out may be the finals.
All right, let's first talk about the performance of some individual players in the team of Uganda Cranes. And of course, we did see the performance of a player in the name of Regan Pande, who has been a former player of Arua Hill Sports Club. By the time he was here at the Arua Hill Sports Club, he was not all that kind of looked at, but whenever he crosses back, and he is now a player to talk about in Uganda currently, and the performance that he's putting forth for Uganda Cranes is quite amazing. And one of the biggest players to talk about is Alan Okello, and this is a player who uses the left foot perfectly. How do you rate the performances of these two players, Alan Okello and Regan Pande, for Uganda Cranes?
Talking about Alan Okello, he has been doing it in the Uganda Premier League for Vipers. In the season which have just finished, he ended as the top scorer of the league and top scorer of Vipers. That was really a good sign to show that he was ready for this tournament. As you see him also in the Cranes team, he's doing well, extremely well. Alan Okello is really a talent to watch in future and for now. But for Regan Pande, when he was really given that chance against Guinea, he really proved that he was a man. He stood really in that position, and at that time he really got for us a goal. And I appreciate the performance really. Regan Pande, Alan Okello, Jutsem Gabi, and other players. I appreciate the effort that they really have in the game and making us proud as Ugandans for now. As Ugandans for now, we are working with our heads upwards, showing that we are really a team to go. As for me, a sports journalist, as per now, I really know that if the coach will be giving courage and the president giving courage for the players, like
of course he has allocated for them 1.2 billion already. And Ugandans are making a lot of noise on social media, and it's like the referee has been conned. That's what fans are actually trying to have on social media. Of course, we've seen a lot of the video, actually VR kind of pics being allocated there when the video actually when the referee went on the video actually referee to see that to go and check those penalties. That's the last penalty that we're gonna took. Of course, people kind of generated their own ideas, their own graphics to see that that referee was kind of influenced by the 1.2 billion offered by the government in there. But all those Ugandans who are kind of very funny. Of course, we have seen a lot of Ugandans making a lot of write-ups on social media. Of course, a lot of them. Of course, the others saying that they are against sex. The others saying that leave. Media posts are actually moving around in there, of course. But let's first talk about the quality of Alan Okello in the team of Uganda Cranes. Does it mean that the performance that he's putting for Uganda Cranes, it means that a player in the names of Alan Okello needs to quit Ugandan football? Of course, when you look at his moves, it's more of a Mohamed Salah moves. That's what Alan Okello is trying to do for Uganda Cranes, and he is living in the buildings. And a player in the names of Alan Okello can't stop making headlines in Ugandan football.
In my perspective, I think Alan Okello, if a good offer comes, I think he should leave. It's a great time for him to go and prove himself outside.
Of course, Simba is talking about him.
Yeah. If that move is really,
All right, let's talk about one of the biggest games that will be coming up today. Of course, Uganda will be knowing which team either they will be playing. Of course, Algeria has got no voice into this. Of course, Algeria has no points in that Group D tournament in there. Of course, the team that Uganda has to look into seriously tonight in Good South Sudan, that is leading Group D with 4 points. Then Senegal, which is second with 4 points. Then we have got Congo, which is third on that log with 2 points. Of course, this is where it's all it's only Sudan, Senegal, and Congo who has got those chances of qualifying through. Of course, when you look at the game that will be coming up today, of course, Nigeria will be playing against Congo. This game will be at 8 p.m. Of course, Nigeria has got 0 points into the tournament so far. And it looks like Congo has got an upper hand in case they beat a team in the names of Nigeria in this tournament. Then a team in the names of South Sudan locked heads with Senegal is a huge one. In case South Sudan and Senegal plays into a draw, that is where the drama is going to be. That's where the mathematics will come in between these two teams. Of course, South Sudan, Sudan has got a very superior goal difference. Sudan has got a 4 goal difference. A draw is enough for them to see that they finish on 5 points and they will be on top of that team. Then Senegal has got a 1 goal difference. A team in the names of DR Congo has got a 0 goal difference. So it's clear that DR Congo needs a bad win against Nigeria. In case they beat Nigeria, they will go on 5 points, and Sudan will lead that table on what we call the goal difference. So it remains to be seen which team Uganda will be playing up against. Of course, the team that finishes second there is the team that Uganda will be playing in this year's quarterfinals. Of course, one of the biggest things that I was looking at as me personal was these three teams co-hosting this. Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania have been playing their group stages games at their home. So I was looking at an angle whereby Uganda should not be given that priority of playing their quarterfinals games at home. No. Tanzania should not be given that priority of playing their home games at home. That quarterfinals, no. Even the same applies to Kenya. This is now whereby these three teams or nations have to go. Kenya has to play its quarterfinal games maybe at Nambole. Uganda has to go to Kenya to go and play the quarterfinals. Then Tanzania also has to come to Uganda to have that balance. Of course, someone can easily say that there has not been that fairness in this tournament. Of course, the fans have been running behind this team of Uganda Queens. Tanzania the same, Kenya the same. So I'm looking at that angle of having that balance into this. Of course, these games have now reached into what we call a crucial moment. Fans who actually support their team personally, you have to travel. Of course, if you think that you are a passionate fan of Uganda Queens, you have to travel to go and watch Uganda Queens game away from home. These issues of favoring a team is not actually very well in there. Of course, that balance is not all that to me well actually organized in there. But let's first talk about one of international sports. Of course, one of the biggest one making headlines this afternoon, this evening, in the case that former Manchester United coach, a player in the names of Gary Neville, has kind of come down to his top 4 prediction once again. Of course, he ruled out Manchester United in his top 4 finish. And after seeing that tremendous performance that Manchester United did put forth against Arsenal Football Club in their opening Premier League match, over Saturday, over the weekend on Sunday, a former player, now a sports journalist in the names of Gary Neville, who currently works with Sky Sports, has now come boldly to see that he states he is what we call the top 4 finish. And then when you look at the top 4 finish that he is kind of labeled here, I'll be telling you that actually at a later time, but let me pick, although it's just a comment, whether Manchester United can be the person to finish in the top 4. Of course, we have seen Manchester United reinforcing so much actually heavily in the transfer market. Of course, they signed in a player in the names of Brian Mbeumo. They also signed a player in the names of Matheus Cunha. Then not forgetting Benjamin Sesko. Then they signed a defender in the names of a player with Diego Leon. In there, of course, that balance that United has been lacking, that actual fighting spirit that United has been lacking, is final at Old Trafford. And when you watch that game against Arsenal Football Club, the performance was really very nice in there. And Gary Neville has now said that Manchester United, he thinks Manchester United can finish in top 4. And let me pick your actual observation about Manchester United so far in the transfer. Of course, their performance that they had against Arsenal was kind of overwhelming. And do you see Manchester United finishing in the top 4? And which team do you think will be important to finish in top 4?
For me, in my own perspective, Manchester United will not finish in top 4.
Why?
Because they still they still have defensive errors. In the goalkeeping department, they are still, those keepers are still making errors. Like you saw, the second choice was started in that match of Arsenal. Yeah, Arsenal against Manchester United.
Yes.
And you saw the blunder he made that resulted into that goal scored by Ricardo Calafiori.
Yes.
If Manchester United really wants to finish in the top 4, they really need to buy a goalkeeper. From what I'm seeing, there was a speculation linking Manchester United to Donnarumma.
Yes.
The PSG goalkeeper.
And Manchester City is just one.
And also Manchester City.
Even Chelsea.
Yeah. But you know, Manchester City, any deal you go with Manchester City, even though you want or you don't want, they want to purchase the player in front of you.
But let's first talk about that team of Manchester United. Do you think, like Gary Neville actually at first ruled them off, and he has now reaffirmed his actual observation, and they think that United can finish in top 4. Do you agree with that, or you don't? Always, which teams do you think can finish in top 4?
For me, I don't agree with the view of Gary Neville. Because
now which players do you think will finish in top 4?
No, first wait. I don't agree.
Yeah.
I don't agree with the view of Gary Neville because Manchester United has scored depth. You see, if Benjamin Sesko gets injured, it will force Manchester United to use Matthias Cunha or Brian Mbeumo. Matthias Cunha is naturally a number 10, and Brian Mbeumo is naturally a winger.
But we have seen them clicking very well for United in the first game against Arsenal Football Club.
But they'll be more playing their role, their natural role. Like if you play Matthias Cunha as a number 9, most times you'll get him. But
United still have got a number of players. They still have got Rasmus Haaland at the disposal. Of course, there's a player in the name of Joshua Zirkzee still in there. Of course, United have got a very rich team right now. If at all those players are not set off to leave.
But Joshua Zirkzee is also originally a number 10, not a striker. Rasmus Haaland is a striker, but he's wasteful on the ball and on chances. When given even 10 chances, he scores 1 out of 10. And when Zirkzee is also used as a striker, he also wastes chances because he's a number 10. He's not supposed to be in that position. That's why Manchester United will not finish in the top 4.
Okay, predict for me your top 4.
My top 4 will, in the first position, Manchester City will take the first position.
Yes.
And in the second position, it will be Manchester City. In the third one, it will be Arsenal. And in the fourth one, Chelsea will take it through. Maybe in the fifth one, Newcastle, Aston Villa, and Manchester United will be in the 6th position.
Of course, that is according to Odoi. Of course, when you look at that game of Manchester United, of course, I have to go and see whether Manchester United will be having that early performance that they had against Arsenal in the next game against Fulham. That will be played away at Craven Cottages in there. Of course, Fulham being one of the stubborn teams here in the English Premier League, we have to go and see how Ruben Amorim will also be having that same performances that he had against Arsenal and against Fulham is what actually we shall be following that closely. Of course, Manchester United likes actually having and that actually a big performance against Giants teams. It's always very hard for this team of United to play against these medium teams. Of course, when it comes to Giants, they always play their air game. But when you look at the Manchester United team, the team looks to be good, the team looks to be cost. Of course, everything at United is now real, and the fighting spirit seems to be very positive at United in there. And Odoi, like he has said, he has ruled United out in the top 4. But according to me, actually top in there, Liverpool will win the Premier League this season. Then Arsenal Football Club will finish 2nd. Then Manchester City will finish 3rd. Then Manchester United will finish 4th. Then a team the name of Chelsea will finish 5th. Then a team the name of Newcastle United will finish what we call in the 6th position. Then a team the name of Tottenham Hotspur under Thomas Frank will finish in what we call the 7th position in there. But let's talk about transfers, and the biggest one is all about Chelsea Football Club pushing hard to see that they play in the names of Raheem Sterling leaves them. Of course, Raheem Sterling, ever since he crossed over from Manchester City to Chelsea Football Club, he had got mixed performances for Chelsea Football Club, and Chelsea had to loan him to Arsenal Football Club, and then at Arsenal he was having limited playing time, and he was not really in good terms with Mikel Arteta at Arsenal Football Club. But now Arsenal had to return a player in the name of Raheem Sterling, the England international, back to Stamford Bridge, and Chelsea is now looking for offers for a player in the name of Raheem Sterling, and it's alleged that a team in the names of Napoli and Inter Milan are much interested in this guy's services. Of course, we have seen a team in the names of Fulham here in the English Premier League also much interested in Raheem Sterling's actual performances. Chelsea needs Raheem Sterling, or Raheem Sterling needs to quit Chelsea Football Club, according to you, Odoi?
According to me, Raheem Sterling needs to quit Chelsea. He's dealing with only young players. As you see, Raheem Sterling is now aging. He's old. He needs to look for a different home, even maybe away from England. He can go to Napoli, because I see Napoli, they are having some aged players like Kevin De Bruyne and others. I think he could fit there.
Remember, they are coached by Antonio Conte, and it has been reported that Antonio Conte also wants to sign a player in the name of Nicolas Jackson. So we're going to see whether these deals will be important to happen. Of course, Chelsea are saying that Raheem Sterling needs to quit. Of course, is Enzo Maresca trying to clear his dressing room at Chelsea Football Club with these big name players, and they're much more hectic. Of course, when you look at the player that he wants to offload at Chelsea Football Club, there are quite many. One of them is Raheem Sterling. He said that Raheem Sterling needs to quit Chelsea Football Club. One of them is Nicolas Jackson, Christophe Nkunku, defender Alex Disasi, Renato Viega, Corneli Chukwuemeka, Ben Chilwell, and Taylor George. These are the players that Enzo Maresca said that they have to look for their own teams. That is a big statement from Chelsea Football Club. Of course, we have seen Chelsea Football Club having a very big injured concern. Of course, a player in the names of Levi Colwill is having what we call an Achilles ligament injury, one of the longest and disturbing injuries for players, and he is said to miss majority of the English Premier League for Chelsea Football Club. You may see him come back for Chelsea Football Club around April or March in there. That's a player in the names of Levi Colwill. That the injury that Lisandro Martinez or Martin United has suffered is the same that Levi Colwill has suffered. So, selling away a player in the names of Alex Disasi, he's a defender. A player in the names of Renato Viega is a defender. So, do you think Chelsea Football Club needs to add defenders on board? Of course, they talked about the player in the names of Bostani of team Inter Milan in there. So we have to go and see whether Chelsea Football Club will be important to add new players. Of course, they are talking about more of attackers. They talked about the player in the names of Xavi Simons from RB Leipzig. They also talked about the player in the names of Alejandro Garnacho from United. So, allowing all these players to leave Chelsea Football Club, where do you see Chelsea Football Club in the Premier League? Of course, I think the struggle is going to be there for them. Of much as they have got a very young squad, a squad that is kind of competitive, and Enzo Maresca thinks that he needs to have players who can listen to him and players who have got less powers in the dressing room.
In my opinion, letting those players go, it's really a good option, because Chelsea is against the PPF, PPF, and they are not allowed to. If you are not selling players, you are supposed to not to buy players. That's why you see Chelsea is a class of use. Players are like Renato Viega. For now, Chelsea is having two left backs, Marco Cucurella and Zaral Hato.
Yes.
Those two. You know that the future of Renato Viega lies elsewhere. In the central defense, Axel Disasi cannot feature because Tosin is there, but Chalobah is also there, but Axel Disasi needs to leave. Fofana is an injury-prone player.
Of course, when you have one player in the names of Levi Colwill, who is out, and then you have a player in the names of Alex Disasi, who is leaving, and then you said Fofana is injury-prone. So automatically you'll be left with only one or two after center back. Do you think this center back will be important to play all this game for Chelsea Football Club? No.
But as you saw on Sunday, Joseph Simpong really played well. If he could continue that spirit, really, I think Chelsea will not need a new defender, because the way he played, the way he was really defending the ball from Ateta. It was he really showed a good potential that he can be a great central defender when partnering. When he's partnering this guy here, this English international.
Rhys James.
Not Rhys James.
Which plays
This
that?
Trevor Chalobah.
Yes.
Yeah, he really saw the good, but really selling those other players. I see if Chelsea could just not allow George to leave, it could be better, because George started showing some good potentials that he can be a good winger. Sometimes even if used as striker, he can offer. But in my opinion, Chelsea needs to sign a central defender, an experienced central defender for now, because one of the central defender, experienced central defender, that's Levi Colwill, is injured. If Chelsea at this time could be looking for a central defender, I think it could be a great addition, because they have a lot of wingers. See, like Estavo Williams, Jamie Gittens, Cole Palmer is also one of them. He can play as a winger, as a number 10. Yao Pedro can also play as a winger. That's what I can say about Chelsea. Letting those other players go is really a good deal for Chelsea, because players like Raheem Sterling, they have a lot of wages, which will really lower Chelsea down if Chelsea could release them.
Let's first talk about Barcelona Football Club. In there, of course, one of the biggest is about Yamal, who have come up authoritatively in the media saying that he is destined to win the Premier League and the Ballon d'Or. That's playing the names of Yamal in there. Of course, he said that he has got 3 actual challenges for him to make to see that he becomes the Ballon d'Or winner. Remember, the Ballon d'Or winner is said to be actually held on on the 22nd of September, just next month. Of course, Yamal is already making headlines in the media, and he is saying that he has got a target to achieve. Of course, he is said to have a big role in free kicks. He said to have a big role in penalty shootouts. He said to have that commanding leadership actually. That's number 10 at Barcelona Football Club, and it has been reported that Yamal says he wants to win the Ballon d'Or, and it looks like he is a favorite member to win the Ballon d'Or. Of course, we have got players like Dembele, we have players like Hakimi, we have got players like Rafinha, we have got players like Nuno Mendes. They are still into the mix, and Yamal is already making headlines in this. And of course, this award will take place at the Theatre du Châtelet down in France, and we are going to see whether Yamal will be in position to win the Ballon d'Or. Of course, when you look at his performance has been so top in there for Barcelona Football Club and for his national team. That's Spain in there. And can we see a player in the names of Yamal at his age win the Ballon d'Or? Of course, no player has won that award at his age. In case he wins that, definitely Yamal will have got one of the biggest awards to his name, and the biggest potentials in him. Can Yamal win the Ballon d'Or over this player that I've mentioned? But I've got a different my Ballon d'Or picks. I don't know which ones you have, but let me first pick it from you. Out of these players that I've mentioned, Yamal, Rafinha, Desire Doué, a player in the names of Vitina, whom we fancy to win the Ballon d'Or. Not forgetting players like Haaland are into the mix. So, Vinicius Junior, they're into the mix. Which player do you think will win the Ballon d'Or?
I will fancy players like Ousmane Dembele, one of the favorites, Vitinha, one of the favorites, Nuno Mendes will be there, because Nuno Mendes and Vitinha, they won the UEFA Nations League recently and the UEFA Champions League. They have been strong, they have been good players, and they have built really a firm foundation for PSG, winning the first UEFA Champions League for PSG. For me, I'm ruling Lamine Yamal out, but remember I'm a Barcelona fan, but I'm ruling him out. But next season, I think if Yamal does it great, can really take on the Ballon d'Or
Okay.
award.
Okay. Of course, we have seen, although going from the players whom I think should be important to win the Ballon d'Or. No doubt about these players. Let this award be given to players who have done their part. Of course, matches is done on what to call the contribution for your club, the contribution for your country. We have seen these two players, Nuno Mendes and Vitina, doing that for their country and as well for their nation extremely well, for their club too. So it's either Nuno Mendes or Vitina to win the Ballon d'Or, according to me. Of course, they have done tremendously very well, and recently they just won what we call the UEFA Super Cup against Tottenham Hotspurs. What a comeback for Luis Enrique Stars, that's PSG. This is a team that has never won the what we call the UEFA Champions League in its history, and the players have now won that. And I can tell you, these players really deserve to win players. So it's not all up to the voters and who depends on what the voters will decide. Of course, Yamal had got the potential probably of winning. That, of course, he has got enough actual contribution for Barcelona Football Club in there and Spain as well. But he is not really a consistent player like a player in the names of Vitina and Nuno Mendes done for Portugal. These players have really been consistent, and this standard performance has won them trophies. That's my observation about those players. But all in all, Yamal has got a different idea about. Of course, he thinks he has got that chance of still winning the Ballon d'Or in there. Of course, let's talk about Jamie Vardy. After leaving a team in the names of Leicester City last season in the English Premier League, Leicester City got relegated, and it has been reported that he wants to reunite with his actual former coach in the names of Brendan Rodgers. And the latest I'm getting those indications that Napoli are also much interested in the services of a player in the names of Jamie Vardy. At his age, do you think Jamie Vardy deserves to play for a top club like Napoli that will be playing in the Champions League? Of course, Napoli has got a big setback in the names of Romelu Lukaku. He is out for them, and he is said to be out for around 4 to 3 months for Team Napoli, and this will be a very big miss for Team Napoli in there in what we call the domestic games and in the European nights. He will be a very big miss, and a player in the names of Jamie Vardy is already 38 years now. 38 years. That's Vardy for you, and he has scored 200 Premier League goals for Leicester City, and he has played 500 games for Leicester City in the English Premier League, and he has won the FA Cup with the Leicester City and the Premier League with the Leicester City in their promotion back into the English Premier League in there. Are we seeing Leicester City, a player in the names of Jamie Vardy, crossing over to Napoli rather than crossing over to Celtic? Which team do you think he deserves to play? Of course, when it comes to pedigrees, and at Napoli, he will play in the Champions League, and at Celtic, he will not be playing in the Champions League. Where do you see this guy crossing over? Of course, he still has got a big potential in him. Of course, we all know his work rate and his fighting spirit.
In the way, from the opinion I've got from you, Jamie Vardy will be crossing to his former manager, that's Brendan Rodgers, to Celtic, because Jamie Vardy and Brendan Rodgers were really together in Leicester City when Brendan Rodgers was still in Leicester City. But when Brendan Rodgers went to Celtic, he left Jamie Vardy there. Jamie Vardy was under different managers, but now Jamie Vardy has decided to leave Leicester City. The best destination for Jamie Vardy, I think, will be in Celtic, because the former manager understands the way how he plays. His potentials, his weaknesses, everything Jamie Vardy has, his former manager knows. But if he could also go to Napoli, it could really be a good addition for Napoli, because their main man, that's Romelu Lukaku, is injured. Jamie Vardy could fit there well and score even 15 goals plus for Napoli in their coming season, if they could convince the England international. But from what I'm seeing, he will be crossing to Celtic, and it will really be a big miss for Leicester City because they are missing their Leeds man. That's Jamie Vardy, and to find a replacement for Jamie Vardy will really be a hard nut to crack, and it will really take time to find someone to fill in the void of Jamie Vardy.
All right.
From what I'm thinking.
Let's first talk about Crystal Palace, and teams are rating this team of Crystal Palace so much. Liverpool are so much into a player in the name of Mark Guehi, then Spurs is edging closer to sealing a deal for a player in the name of Brett Eze, who has been monitored by Arsenal Football Club in there. Of course, Manchester United also keeping an eye on their defensive midfielder in the name of Adam Wharton after turning down an offer to sign a player in the name of Carlos Baleba from Team Brighton in there. Of course, let's first talk about this team of Crystal Palace. And Crystal Palace is already saying that they are not going to release both players. I'm talking about Mark Guehi and a player in the names of Brett Eze, respectively, to these clubs that are so much interested in their services. They're saying that these players have to first play for them in what to call the Conference League group stages first, and after that, maybe they see whether the team will be important to go past. Of course, these are quality players that has been playing so much games for Crystal Palace, and the Crystal Palace manager thinks these players are yet going to play fast for them to see that the team qualifies for the UEFA Conference League first, to see that they are released. Of course, the transfer market in England is closing with this very month, and we are already at the 19th of the month of September. So probably we're left with a few days for the Premier League transfer to shut down. So are we seeing all these players living in Crystal Palace, and what good actually addition would this player in the name of Brett Eze, who is crossing over to to Spurs very soon? Of course, Crystal Palace have already started identifying replacements for him. Of course, they are talking about Leicester City is also a player in the name of Bill Quanyas in there. Of course, they're also talking about that midfielder of Club Brugge in the name of Christos. So these are the players that Crystal Palace said in case a player in the name of Mark Guehi, a player in the name of Brett, once he leaves, these are the players that they'll be bringing on board. And Mark Guehi, they're still looking for his replacement in there, but looking at the Crystal Palace now, and these quality players are leaving them. But let's first pick it from the perspective of the team in the name of Spurs. They newly signed a player in the names of Muhammad Kudus from Western United, and we have seen how good he has been for Team Spurs in their opening game against Burnley. He was really a team in the names of Burnley there. So he was so much positive in that 2 goals that Richardson scored in that opening match against Burnley. But now adding a player in the names of Brett Eze into the squad, how good would this team of Spurs be? And Thomas Frank already has got a new captain to his name in the names of Christian Romero, who has signed a 4-year contract with the club, and they are going to add a player in the names of Brett Eze into the mix. £55 million, then 5 million on others, altogether £60 million for the services of Brett Eze at Spurs.
I think that will really be a good addition for Tottenham Hotspur, because in the in the left wing side they have few players like Brendan Johnson and some other players which I cannot mention, but if Brett Eze could really come to Tottenham Hotspur, he could really boost that left wing position of Tottenham Hotspur. If Brendan Johnson is not performing, you bring a Brett Eze. If in the middle, if Rodrigo Bentancur and Popsa are not performing, you shift a Brett Eze to the middle. He can also operate well from the middle, taking those shots, those free kicks, box to box free kicks.
Yes.
In the wings, he can also cross for you. He can dribble. He does anything. He can even shoot from far. If Tottenham Hotspur really bring a Brett Eze to their squad, they will really be fighting for the position of Champions League.
Talk about a team in the names of Liverpool. Of course, they have let a number of players leave. they've let a player in the names of Jaran Kwasa leave, a defender. He has crossed over to a team in the names of Bayer Leverkusen, and they've let go a number of other players. But let's first talk about the defensive unit of Team Liverpool Football Club. Ibrahim Konate and Virgil van Dijk in the opening match against a team in the names of Bournemouth. They struggled defensively in there, and Joe Gomez has been injury prone for them, and he came in as a substitute, and he had got a positive start for Liverpool Football Club in there. Does Liverpool Club need a new centre back? Of course, Jones and a player in the names of Van Dijk are kind of aged now, and Ibrahim Konate is attracting interest from Real Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain respective. Does Liverpool Football Club need a player of a Mark Guehi caliber?
Yeah, from my view, Liverpool needs a player of Mark Guehi caliber, because defender like Virgil van Dijk is now aged up. If you see against Crystal Palace, he also did a mistake where Crystal Palace scored from. For now, I thought Liverpool was going to bring a replacement of Virgil van Dijk and introduce him into the squad slowly until he adapts to the formation Ancelotti has been using. In that way, it could be better. And if the defender now gets adapted, Liverpool can now let Virgil van Dijk leave. Those type of players, Mark Guehi is one of them. If they could bring him to Anfield, that could really be a good addition for Liverpool in the center of the defense. Ibrahim Konate still continues with this good progress.
Yes.
And Joe Gomez is an injury-prone player. He plays like, even he doesn't reach half of the season, he gets injured. So I think Liverpool, if they bring Mark Guehi, it will really be a good addition. But they did a mistake letting Kwanzaa to leave. That was really a big mistake. And leaving Trent Alexander-Arnold also leave. If they could convince Trent Alexander-Arnold really properly and increase for him some amount of money, I think the guy could remain. But letting the guy leave is also another problem.
But let's first talk about the performance of Mark Guehi for Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
And he has been a standard performance for Crystal Palace, and he has.
Yeah.
So, what partnership do you see? Probably this guy coming in. Of course, he has already agreed personal terms with the team. The name of Liverpool. Liverpool has given him 5 years contract already. Personal terms already been done, and it has been reported that Crystal Palace said they don't want to lose Mark Guehi on Bosman Road. Of course, he's having 12 months remaining on his current contract, which means this season is the only season that he'll be playing for Crystal Palace. And then after that, he will quit Crystal Palace and he'll go on Bosman Road for free. So they thought it very well that they need to cast this guy out, and it's Liverpool who are much interested in his service. And he said he only wants to play for Liverpool Football Club, and indeed it's going to happen. And Mark Guehi is crossing over to Liverpool.
The best partnership for Mark Guehi could be Mark Guehi partnering Ibrahima Konate. That could be a great partnership for him. But if he can also partner Virgil van Dijk, I think it could also be somehow good. But the best one could be Ibrahima Konate and Mark Guehi in the middle of the defense.
Of course, Liverpool has got over 200 million pounds in player sales. Of course, the latest player that Liverpool has sold is a player in the names of Ben Doak, whom they have actually sold to FC Bournemouth just even today. Of course, he has signed already for FC Bournemouth in there. Of course, they have actually sold a player in the names of Luis Diaz. Darren Nunes has gone. A player in the names of Trent Alexander-Arnold has gone. We have a player in the names of Koleha has gone. Then Jared Kwasa has gone. And Liverpool spending could go past 300 million pounds in case they sign a player in the names of Alexander Isak. Then a player in the names of Mark Guehi. Liverpool will spend over 300 million pounds in the transfer market. That is something that we thought we needed to let you know. Of course, these are some of the biggest ones. Of course, Liverpool has already added a number of players into their book. Of course, they have added a player in the names of Gerald, a player in the names of Jeremy Frimpong into their books. Fred Witt is in there, Hugo Ekitike is in there, and a player in the names of Milos Kerkez is already into the books of Liverpool. Then playing the names of Giovanni Leo from Parma is already into the mix of Liverpool Club. He is a defender and he is still very young, 18 years old. He is a very good addition for Liverpool Club. Like Fabrizio Romano has always said, don't underrate Liverpool, don't underrate Manchester United so far in the Premier League, and they have reinforced so much in there, and they look to be competitive enough in the English Premier League. And our time is virtually up, and I will be first talking about one of the biggest players. I'm talking about playing the names of Christopher Nkunku, and he's attracted interest from Barcelona. From a team the names of Bayern Munich. Can Christopher Nkunku sign very much in the team of
yeah, Christopher Nkunku will really sign in Bayern, because in Bayern most of them midfielders are now aged. You see them releasing Thomas Müller. The experienced defenders in Bayern are now Leon Goretzka. They also released Diao Palhinha. But in that number 10 role, they are Zaman Musiala is injured. If Bayern could sign Nkunku, at this time, Bayern will really get a lot from him. Because this guy, Nkunku, really likes moving forward with the ball. This could really create chances for players like Harry Kane, Luis Diaz, Michael Olise, making Bayern to strive forward and defend the Bundesliga once more again this season.
All right, let's first talk about Rasmus Hojlund. Of course, Manchester United are willing to let him go on loan, but they are still very confused and they're still very adamant, and they're saying that they are not forcing him to go. Of course, when a team comes from him, they can easily let him go. Of course, we have seen Napoli and Inter Milan so much interested in his services. Should he go back to Italy and go and make statements once again? Of course, he used to make statements at Atalanta before Manchester United signed him expensively in there.
I think if Rasmus Hojlund is supposed to leave, it's better for him to go to Napoli rather than Inter Milan, because Inter Milan already has experienced strikers like Marcos Thuram, Lautaro Martinez. They are all there. Rasmus Hojlund cannot bench Lautaro Martinez. Rasmus Hojlund cannot bench Marcos Thuram. It's better for him to go and replace the injured Lukaku at Napoli to really be a good instead of him also in Manchester United being as a substitute, always sitting on the bench. It's better for him to go to Napoli and try opportunities.
Our time is actually up in there. Of course, we have to leave the studio for the next program to come in. It has been me, Senior Zero, the host of, so I had the privilege of hosting my friend Emma Odoi right here with me in the studio. Remember, this show is sponsored by Sabri Rama Global Special Limited in there. They are the biggest and sole sponsors of this show. Of course, they deal in various activities. They deal in the supply of goods. They deal in supply of goods in there. They also deal in bids and money transactions in there. In case of money issues of loan, you look for the offices of Sabrina Global Special Limited. They are the biggest within town, and you will be sorted with everything. Although you are passing source before we leave the studio.
I really want to thank everyone viewing us live. It has really been for me an opportunity to express myself to you through the through visual or through the through films or cinema. It's really a great opportunity for me. I really thank the managers of Sarah Rights TV for giving me this opportunity. Thanks. We'll meet next time.
All right, that is the last words from my good friend Emma Odoi. We're out of here. Bye bye. Special greetings goes to my good friend Flavia. I know you'll be making 1 year tomorrow, and you have been so special in my life, and the life that I'm carrying in is courtesy of you, because you have offered a lot to me in terms of everything. The happiness, you always giving it for me, and I don't want to call it my, but it is my only one. That's Flavia for you in there. But special greetings has to go to our manager in the names of Sabiri, so much. Thank you so much for always being appreciative to us, and Bite Jamal, as usual, sitting behind the camera and see that everything moves on positive here at Saras TV. Thank you so much, everyone who has been viewing us live. We're out of here. Bye-bye.